Hello and welcome to the Jungle Nook. Today I'm going to do probably my final update on my first major pest infestation. I'm going to share with you what I did to get a variety of different pests under control and share some of my thoughts and observations with you. I do a variety of different types of videos on this channel. And one of the things that I do is plant care. And when I first noticed the pests throughout the entire room, actually the entire house, on pretty much every single plant, I almost overreacted. I did get a little panicky because a lot of what I'm sharing with you through YouTube is a little bit unorthodox on how I care for my plants. So it's real important for me to have real nice, healthy, vibrant plants that are flourishing, as proof as to what I'm doing does work. And when I got this infestation, I got a little panicky because I did think a lot of my plants were going to look really bad for a while. But that wasn't the case. Now, like I said, I want to share some things with you, and one of those things that I hope you get from this, some good advice on how to deal with some of these different pests, is I don't want you to overreact. I almost did. I do not use harsh insecticides on my plants because they can have adverse effects on your plants. Man-made, industrial, or commercial insecticides, they work great, but usually there are a variety of different chemicals and compounds in them and that are effective against a whole host of different types of pests. They want to get a good review, they want you to recommend their product and continue to use it. So they have a lot of different things, a lot of different types of insecticides. You might be misidentifying the pest, or you might have more pests than you realize. So it's broad-based. Think of medications. If you take a whole bunch of different medications, medications usually have side effects. So if you're taking a lot of different medications, there's a lot of different side effects. It's the same with insecticides. And they can have adverse effects on your plants. And if your plant's dealing with a major infestation, the immune system's probably already compromised. And these insecticides can cause further stress and harm to your plants that you might not even realize it's from the insecticide. You're thinking it's just, it's the damage and the stress from the insects or other pests, which it very well could be. But out in nature, and within our homes, plants produce their own antibiotics, insecticides, fungicides, milicides, all sorts of things. But they also produce pheromones to bring in predatory insects and other things to help control the problem as well. And that's something they're lacking in your home. That's where wiping your plants off comes in handy, because you wiping the plant off is the same as these predatory insects coming and removing the pests right from the plants. When I first noticed the problems, which consisted of fungus gnats, thrips, white and red spider mites, I just went around and started wiping everything off with distilled water. I did that for a few weeks. That was about 2 months ago. I did that for a few weeks, and after everything had been wiped off at least once, and those plants were, after I wiped them off, I was still noticing quite a few insects on them. I did them a second time, and then I immediately sprayed everything down with neem oil and wiped everything off with neem oil. The tops, the bottom of the leaves, the stems. I even sprayed a little right onto the soil. I've said many times that neem oil is not a product to use to combat a large active infestation, because it is not an extremely effective pesticide. I don't really believe that anymore, because all I used other than water was neem oil. The thrips are gone. I have not been able to find a thrip in over a month, although I do still have spider mites on quite a few plants. The numbers are a fraction of what they were. I'm going to get more into the individual insect, their reproductive rates, their life cycles. The reason I use neem oil is because it is a 100% natural product from the neem tree. It is extracted from the seed, and it is an insecticide, fungicide, and milicide. It does kill insects, fungus, and millipedes, which makes sense that it's concentrated in the seed because that's how the plant's protecting the seed from being eaten from different types of pests, so that it has a greater chance of germinating and being able to reproduce successfully. But these are natural compounds that the tree is producing itself and doesn't have adverse effects on the plant. Plus, it's an oil. So although my spider mites, they're not an insect, and the insecticide does not kill them. When you're wiping the plant off, you're wiping off the mature mites, so they're not continuing to lay eggs. But it also coats the eggs that are still stuck on the plant, and they suffocate and die. And also any of the adults that are left, if they get coated too, they can't breathe and they die. I really do think neem oil is effective for dealing with a major infestation. I had a couple of plants with so many spider mites that were just completely encrusted with webbing. I didn't just spray down the paper towels and wipe it off. I totally saturated the plant and then wiped it off. And that's all I did to it. And those plants, the majority of those plants, I don't see any problems on them anymore. And it's been 2 months almost since I finished cleaning my leaves and then treating them with neem oil. So it's been 2 months. I haven't wiped anything down. The red mites, I still have a few of them, and their numbers are increasing. Actually, the red mite population, we're going to talk more about them. The red mite population is increasing. The white mites, totally gone off a lot of my plants, but a lot of them still have them, a fraction of the numbers, no thrips, and perhaps the neem oil helped with drying out my soil. Got rid of the fungus gnats. So yeah, I had a huge swarm of fungus gnats. And the thing about the fungus gnats is when they lay their eggs into the soil, which is where they lay their eggs, is in the soil. And they feed off of decomposing organic material. Compost or manure would be great for these guys, which I do use some of those products in some of my pots. Really what they're eating is the fungus that feeds off of compost and manure. And that's their preferred food source. But lacking that food source, they will then go after the roots of the plants. Healthy roots that will start to consume the healthy roots, causing wounds, which can allow diseases and pathogens to get into the plant through those wounds, especially pathogens, which are what causes root rot. And some of the diseases, actually the majority of the diseases and pathogens that they carry, are what seedlings are really susceptible to. The damping off, which is a fungus gnats can transfer that fungus to your seedlings, as well as other diseases that seedlings are highly susceptible to. And although it only takes about 4 weeks for the egg to hatch and to then become an adult fly and fly away, that adult fly can live for about a month, and they can lay up to 300 eggs. So you can see how you can really get quite a population very rapidly. One adult within a month or two laying 300 eggs. The ideal conditions, perfect conditions, which really perfect conditions are what the conditions are within your home. You know, it's warm. It's probably not overly humid, although they do like wet, moist soil. But the fly itself, you know, it doesn't matter if you have low humidity. And the fly, they consume water and flower nectar. So if you have a lot of sources of water and you have flowering plants, fungus gnat's going to have what it needs to be healthy and continue, laying lots of eggs, up to 300, within its life cycle. And the thrips, there's a lot of different types of thrips. I'm not sure exactly which type of thrip I had. I had one of the black varieties, and from the time they laid their eggs, which a thrip actually lays their eggs inside of the plant. They pierce the tissue and lay their eggs in the plant, usually underneath the leaves or within the stems. But if there's a flower getting ready to open up, they will lay their eggs right in the flower too. They can live for 1 to 2 months and lay hundreds of eggs. My biggest problem here though was the mites. Now, I have white and red mites. I am fairly confident I have the 2-spotted white mite, and I also have red mites. Now, there's different types of mites, including the red ones. The red ones, there can be red mites that feed on the plant, but there's also red mites that will feed off of thrips, other mites, eggs, and even other insects. Now, the red and white mites that feed on your plants, with the conditions in most homes, they're only going to take about 1 week. The eggs will take about 1 week to hatch and become an adult. And they can live for 1 to 2 months. And while they are an adult for 1 to 2 months, can lay up to 100 eggs on the plants. And they actually suck the juices right out of the plants. And they will lay their eggs usually on the underside of the leaves, but really anywhere on the outside of the plant. And they will also produce webbing. The spider mites that produce webbing, when you see the webbing, really that's for 1 to 2 reasons. One, they do it as a defense mechanism when there are predators. I had a lot of plants that had a lot of webbing, and I had plants that did not have a lot of webbing or none at all. And some of the plants that had no webbing had the greatest concentration of the mites, but no webbing. And when I was looking up the different types of mites and seeing that it's a defense mechanism when there's predators, I'm starting to lean towards my red mites being predatory mites. Another reason that I think this is the case, the red mites, they will also lay their eggs. These are the ones that feed on the plant. They will also lay their eggs on the web itself. And I've only seen 1 mite on a web, and I have a lot of red mites. Now the red predator mites, which again, I'm not sure which one I have, but I'm leaning towards the predatory ones, which I did not introduce. They just happened to find their way in. They only live for about 2 to 4 weeks, a lot shorter of a lifespan. But they still, within their lifetime, the adults will lay up to 100 eggs. They eat anywhere from 5 to 20 prey items a day. It depends on what they're eating. If they're exclusively feeding on the eggs of other insects or adult mites, they may eat up to 20. If they're eating adult thrips, they may only eat 5. It depends on how big the meal is. But they do eat between 5 to 20 prey items per day. I still have red mites on a couple of my plants, and I really see the population going up on them over the last, month to about a month and a half, where I have not been cleaning anything up. And although there are a few spider mites, white ones, on that plant, there's hardly any. From what I'm seeing, it looks like there may actually be more red ones than white ones. Now, I can't really tell the difference, and I can't treat my plants for one species and not the other, so I'm going to be starting to wipe my plants down again and removing both. I would assume that if they were the predator ones on those plants, though, their numbers would start to drop due to a lack of food. But I'm not taking the chance. I do believe this is where the majority of my problem came from with the fungus gnats, because I did put a lot of real organic material. Yes, cocoa coir and peat moss, which is what this mostly is organic, but it really doesn't break down into any kind of significant nutrients or really decompose very rapidly. But I did put manure into this pot, and my humidity level really plummeted this winter, and it dropped all the way down into the mid 20s. Low humidity is great for the mites. So I started watering it more and more heavily. The reason I was watering it so much is because you lose a lot of moisture due to evaporation. So I was trying to get the humidity level up by adding quite a bit of water to this pot. And I think that moisture, along with all that manure, you know, the microorganisms and stuff feeding on that manure is what the larva fungus gnat prefers to consume. So I just simply let this dry out, and my population really dropped. I do have other pots here. I was doing some experimentation over the last couple of years, seeing how plants grow in peat moss and cocoa coir with just liquid fertilizers compared to a true organic soil, a really rich soil. And, you know, to be honest with you, I've seen absolutely no difference at all. So I'm not using those types of organics in the majority of my plants any longer. I'm referring to manure and compost. Now, like I said, I almost overreacted because I did think about using some insecticidal soaps. I also got a lot of comments about airflow because I do not use any kind of fans or anything for air circulation. And I did, because I got so many comments, I did actually get my fans out, because I do have them, I just don't use them. I did get them out, cleaned them up, and I was waiting to see if I could get the situation under control, and then I was going to start using them. The reason I was going to do it that way is I didn't want to be blowing these insects around when there were so many of them here. But I got everything under control, and I'm not going to change how I do things. Now, where I live, you know, we get really cold winters and really warm summers. So in the winter, yeah, the temperature might be, you know, 35, 40 degrees Fahrenheit, you know, during the day. But at the night, when it drops down into the teens or low 20s, my furnace is just constantly running. And I do have vents in this room for the heat, so there is airflow. I am not going to be using fans. I believe there is plenty of airflow. My furnace clicks on at least once or twice an hour during the day, and can click on multiple times per hour and run longer each time at night. And in the summer, I have central air, which also blows out of those vents to create some airflow. And in the summer, I do move a lot of my plants outside, which will help the airflow to move around a little bit more. So I did not put any fans on in this room to help out with airflow, thinking that would help with the insects. I've never done it before. I'm not going to start doing something like that now. Oh, and besides, I have really low humidity. The reason I don't use fans, and the reason I have fans and don't use them, is because in the winter, when I turn those fans on, and you know, there is more circulation throughout the whole house because of that, it causes my humidity in my plant rooms to go down even further. So I'm not going to do that. The mites really like dry, warm temperatures. They like low humidity. This plant right here, we're going to be cleaning this up. There's a lot of those red mites, and like I said, I'm not sure exactly which ones they are, predator or prey, predator or pest. But there is some webbing. I don't know if it's going to show up or not. There is some webbing. on this plant. Hardly any at all. At one time, the webbing would be really noticeable every 3 to 5 days, like a lot of webbing on this plant. There's hardly any webbing, but there are quite a few of the red mites. I did get some clips with my cell phone. I'll show you them right now. Now, the ladybug, whenever we have a fire in the fireplace at the other end of the house, which is rare, usually a ladybug or two will start flying around. They're hibernating in the house. And I'll move them back here. That's where the ladybug came from. But these red mites, there's so many of them on this plant. And I want to remove them just in case they're not predators. These guys, what they do is they can sense the other mites or their prey, might be thrips or anything, on the webs. They actually touch the web and they can feel the movement and then they'll go after the mites. But also the white mites, wherever they feed off of the plant, there is a scent that comes out of that wound that they can sense as well. And those are two different ways that they know that there are those white mites on the plant, as well as the plant releasing pheromones. I'll be using neem oil. I'm going to really spray this plant down. I'm using neem oil right now. Starting from the top, working my way down. I'm going to do the top of the leaf as well as the bottom of the leaf. I'm going to wipe down the stems, the whole plant. I did dilute this a little bit further than what is recommended, and I shook it up really good. It is an oil. Oil and water don't mix very well. Making sure to get the edges of the leaves where the stem and the leaf meet, the entire top of the leaf, the entire bottom part of the leaf, just everywhere. Part of the reason why I don't use humidifiers is because I have such hard water, and I have to run them. I had 4 altogether, and I had to run them at their highest setting to make any kind of difference with the humidity. And because of my real hard water, a lot of calcium in it, every week it would take me well over an hour to clean the heating element off. All the calcium was on the heating element, and they would just shut off. Plus, because I had to run them on the highest setting, even though my largest humidifiers held 2 gallons of water, every day I had to top them off. The maintenance of the humidifiers, keeping them running, that was like 8 to 10 hours a month. I didn't have that much time. Would have been different if I didn't have hard water and I didn't have to keep cleaning them out. That was the big issue. I did not enjoy cleaning them up, but I have to immediately, be on top of that every time they'd stop working, because I didn't want wild fluctuations with my humidity. And your plants will become accustomed to whatever humidity you have, within reason. A lot of my plants are showing signs of affected by low humidity. A lot of my plants are starting to get brown edges and stuff, something which I never really experienced before, even with my low humidity. But this winter it went down to, it was in the 20s for so long, like the humidity. So I'm not bringing the humidifiers back out. I'm not bringing out the fans. I think going 3 years without any real problem is proof enough for me that I don't need that. And with the fans and the humidifiers, they take electric. And it isn't just the expense of the electric. I've maxed out, the capacity of my house, what it can support, because of all of the fish tanks and all the grow lights and other things. So I'm not going to start doing that. I don't feel that I need to. I gotta rub it like this, not just to remove the insects, but I don't want to leave any kind of discoloration or any kind of spots from the droplets of the neem oil drying. And it's been, you know, probably close to 2 months since I've done this. And that's because I don't want to use too much of this oil and end up suffocating the plants. Gotta go answer my phone. This plant should do really good. Outside, I up-potted it into a larger pot, and over the winter, like I said, I'm not changing things up really much here. And I did continue to water my plants. Actually, I watered them a little bit more over winter than I did in the summer. And I probably fertilized them better over the winter too, because I really made sure to keep up on fertilizing a minimum of once a month, sometimes even more. And this plant, even though it did have some pests and did suffer a little bit, it's held on to quite a bit of its foliage, including its larger leaves. You know, there's more real estate up here for photosynthesis once spring gets here. That's one of the things that's a little unorthodox that I do. You know, lots of water and lots of fertilizer right through the winter. And now this plant's in a real good condition with all this foliage. It doesn't have to grow a whole bunch of foliage now in the spring to start collecting the sunlight outside while it's outside. This is a full sun plant. All of the newer leaves that it put on while it's been in the house have been these smaller ones. It even has some new little plants starting to grow out of it too. But the leaves are smaller because it's not getting adequate light, even with the grow lights in here. But once I move it outside with the larger pot, and I know over winter that root structure has filled out the pot, it's held on to quite a few of its leaves, put out a bunch of new smaller ones. This plant's going to really, I'm anticipating a real explosion in growth. Seriously, I'm hoping that this plant at a minimum doubles, but I'm thinking it could triple in size. And that's because as soon as spring gets here and it starts collecting all that sunlight, all that energy, it's going to be able to start pushing out larger and larger leaves quicker. I'm hoping, by late summer, it's putting out leaves that are larger than this. The average size leaf larger than this. And, by time winter gets here, late fall, early winter, and I move this plant into the house, it should be pretty massive. Not really sure where it's going to go in the house. I've seen other people keep their plants in front of huge windows, in my area. The same exact type of plant. My mom and I both I bought one for my mom for Mother's Day and one for myself. And she kept hers outside the first year and I did not. And it got really big. And then she put it in front of a window that got really good light. And then again, the next summer outside, that plant was so huge. I'm expecting that to happen with this one too. Keep our fingers crossed. The reason I started at the top was I don't want stuff dripping. I don't want to start at the bottom and have stuff drip down there. And yeah, I know stuff's dripping down onto the floor, but I'll just simply, it's an oil, it's a natural oil. I'll just wipe the floor up when I'm done. It's not bad for the floor, a hardwood floor. Now, when I click on the monetization feature for this video, YouTube's probably gonna recommend that I put 8 to 10 ad breaks in here. 8 to 10 spots for commercials. I don't do that. So my average videos, only getting about $3 to $9 for my average video. But down below in the comments, there is a link you can click on where you can make a $5 donation. And I get $4.95. So if one person leaves a donation, that's most likely going to be more than what this video is even going to make. But if you ever come across one of my videos where you really like it, or you learn something that saves you money or time, and you want to leave a donation, that would be great. And you can also leave a comment and let me know what video you were watching when you left the donation. But if people start doing that, I could put even less ad breaks in my videos and, increase the overall amount of revenue. But still, feel free to ask me questions in the comments below if you want a certain type of video that maybe I could make, or you have a question about something you've seen in the video, or maybe one of the other videos. It don't matter. You can still leave a comment. I respond to pretty much all the comments. I do respond to all the comments. I enjoy them as well. And hit that like button. So there was my in-video commercial. So the reason I think I ended up with such a problem is because I had stopped cleaning my leaves off as frequently as I was. And I also stopped polishing up the leaves with the neem oil as frequently as well. I mean, I do it. I have a lot of plants. I was doing it, but I wasn't doing it as frequently as I used to do with certain plants. The type of pests that I have, they actually enjoy lower humidity, which I had or have. And I had stopped cleaning the leaves off as frequently. I mean, I was still doing it, but I have so many plants, and if I just didn't work in a certain area, some of the plants went an extra month or two than what they normally did before getting the neem oil treatment. So all I had to do was get caught up on my normal maintenance that I really fell behind on. But if the problem comes back again, I'll just do the same process. Now, true, I'm only talking about fungus gnats, which, again, the fungus gnats, I did spray some of the neem oil into the soil of that real large pot, but I let it dry out, and I let some of my other pots that I knew had a lot of organics in there I let that dry out a little bit more than usual as well. And that's what did the fungus gnats in. The mites and the thrips, that was wiping them off. And neem oil, all the different things that it does for the plant, it gets absorbed into the plant. I've said before how it's real easy to keep up on keeping your plants, polished up and treat it with the neem oil, because it makes them look so beautiful afterwards. It's a big incentive. But yeah, when you have a lot of plants and it takes so much time, think about some of them hanging baskets, how many leaves are on them hanging baskets. When I'm watering my plants and I see leaves that are turning brown or yellow, I will just give them a little tug and see if they just come off real easy. If they do, that's the perfect time to have removed that leaf, because the plant has already started to seal up that wound, or the open wound that's left will be healed much faster because the plant's ready for that leaf to come off. But sometimes if I'm going to be doing a video, I'll just cut them off even if they're not ready, just so the plants look nicer. Do be aware that I clean my plants up a little bit before videos, and I polish them up a little bit, and my plant room when I'm filming usually looks a little bit better than what it did right before I started filming. Today's no exception. I did remove some leaves, I swept the floors, I moved some stuff out of the room. Nothing wrong with spending a little bit of extra time cleaning up your plants before company comes over. Clean them up before they come over. Plants in front of windows, just turn them so that the side that was facing the windows facing into the room, that can make a huge difference. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to inspect it with my glasses on and see if there are spots that I missed, or if I see them on there. I got to wear my glasses and these things to look. Instantly I'm seeing them. Not many, not like I was, but I was seeing probably 50 of them on each leaf. I just wiped, I think, 3 or 4 off of the top. Just 2 right there. There was some webbing and a bunch of them right here. I also seen a few white ones too. So nothing like there was before I started. I did look this plant over very thoroughly. This leaf, I can tell I just didn't wipe underneath it very well in this spot. It was a good 10 of them right here. So I am going back over it and looking, and I am finding a few. There's one. Oh, there's 3 of them right there, right next to each other. And considering how many eggs these guys can lay, it's good that I'm going back over it and just getting the individuals off. If I'm seeing them, they're mature and they're old enough and mature enough to be laying eggs. Again though, I am removing almost nothing compared to what was originally there, but this is gonna help even more. There's a fungus gnat. I do still have them, but they're not swarms. Oh, okay, so I can, let me see, I'll try to. There's about 20 of them in this one little spot underneath this leaf, so I just missed that when I was wiping. This is making a real big deal. You see how long this is taking me though. And I'm sure when I edit this, I'll be skipping ahead and stuff.